gentlemen, welcome to another Manhood Academy debate. We have Sid and we have the professor, and as always, our debates are online for everyone to listen to. We do alter the voices. We will not put out the audio or the video portion of the debate, just the audio version. It will be altered. Sig, do you consent for this debate to be posted online?
Yes, I do.
All right. And I believe we're debating personal responsibility or personal accountability.
I have no idea what we're debating. That's the amazing thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's evolution or if it, just judging from the chat room last night.
I thought it was going to be evolution, but then I thought maybe feminism, but I have no idea.
Yeah, we don't know yet. So I think it might be like a mixture of a little bit of everything. I don't know. But
I hope it covers so many topics. I'm so excited.
That'd be fun. But he's heard some previous debates, and he has pointed out some flaws, and he would like to address them.
Awesome, let's do it.
So, without further ado, Sig, you may start.
All right. Well, this is in reference to some of the debates, like debate number 8 and debate number 6.
By the way, could somebody record DBE? Could you record the debates he's referring to? So when we post the our debate, we can reference them. Like if people want to go to the debates he's referencing. Okay. Debate number 8, and which other one was it?
Number 6, and also I don't remember what number, but the debate.
Do you remember the subject? Was it like debating a man-child or debating a pseudo-intellectual, or which one was it?
There was man-child, pseudo-intellectual, and I think the last one was
the nice guy lawyer.
No, the one. Okay,
I think he had issues with debating a professional victim.
Oh, okay. The rape victim.
Victim? No, I'm not sure if it was that one, but let's see. Number 8, the man-child. Number 6, the pseudo-intellectual.
Right.
And I don't remember what number it was, but it's the one where the woman had a boyfriend who sexually assaulted her.
That's the rape one.
That's okay, yeah.
Debating a professional victim.
Right, and it seemed that there was some apparent contradiction from some issues where it seemed you value personal responsibility, yet you also recognize the effect of influence on others. So,
the effect of influence? I didn't catch that last part.
Influence on others. Like in debate number 6, you.
No, I got the part where you said you seem to value personal responsibility and something.
Yeah, and outside influence, like the way outside influence can control you to some degree. Okay,
so I think you're kind of trying to say that on one hand, I'm personally accountable, but on the other hand, it's forces outside my control. Outside my control. I'm not accountable. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes, but I'm saying what you were saying on 2 different debates.
Okay.
That such as in the example, say a woman dresses slutty and gets raped or something.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you would say that the woman is responsible just as much as the rapist.
Correct.
However, it seems that...
So I would say that there's a dual shared responsibility. The woman dressing like a slut, that's her fault, and she should be held accountable for that, as well as the man, raping the girl or acting on his... And see, I wouldn't even necessarily use the term rape, because it's one thing if a woman's inside of her house and a guy breaks in and rapes her. Mm-hmm. But it's another thing if a woman's wearing provocative clothing and taking advantage of a man's sexuality, his libido, his male libido, that's just biology, and then he acts on that. See, it's two different things. To me, it's not rape and rape. It's rape and irresponsible behavior and resulting irresponsible behavior as a consequence. Just as if you have a single mother who raises, who creates a single mother situation for herself either through divorce or bad relationship management, and now she's a single mother and she has to raise kids, well, she put herself in a bad position, number one. And then as a result, now the kids grow up and they become criminals. Typically, single mothers raise the vast majority of criminals. So you see, there's a criminal behavior. They're committing crimes against people. They're responsible. But on the other hand, there's a single mother who is producing the criminal behavior. So she has to be held accountable too. So that's what I mean when I say, yes, in that situation that you described where a woman is wearing provocative clothing, again, taking advantage of male sexuality, she should be held accountable there. It shouldn't be treated, it shouldn't even be called rape. As, a case where a woman is like inside her house again and somebody breaks in and then he rapes her. That I would consider a legitimate rape. Two
Right.
different things.
I would agree with you and say that she shoulders some each party shoulders some responsibility, but they're definitely not equal, and they shouldn't receive the equal punishment as you tried to push in debate number 6, debating with a pseudo-intellectual on the subject of the single mother.
Okay.
You pushed the point that the single mother would share equal responsibility with the that she raised.
I agree. I think they should share equal responsibility, just as in the rape case or in the single mother case. To say that the criminal raised by the single mother should get any more than 50%, or I think that the criminal should actually have less responsibility because they're kind of like a product of their environment. They were raised by a single mother who raised them so poorly that they became criminals. They didn't choose to be raised by a single mother. They had no say in the matter. So, okay, so at the very least, I'd make a concession and say 50%, but I would never dare to say that the criminal is more accountable than the woman who raised him. I would never say that.
Yeah, I know, but you'd say they'd be equal. And my position is that they would be proportional based on the level of control they have over the situation. Now, the criminal certainly has more control over themselves than the mother having control over what actions the child will eventually get into. Especially in Lunatic's example where he talked about the child committing a crime in their adult life. Now, in their adult life, any number of influences could have caused this, the crime that they committed. So,
well, yes, you could say it could be, the day of the week, they broke up with a girlfriend, whatever. But by and large, I mean, it's not just the criminality, it's all the other issues, that we deal with here at the Academy. The inability to get a date, the inability to talk to women, the inability to socialize. All these things are connected to bad parenting. So, what you're trying to say is, bad parenting is like maybe a 1% issue, and then there's all these other variables that happen that are responsible for producing this criminal. Nothing could be further from the truth. The parents have such a huge influence, and it's so ironic that it's never talked about. When you talk about issues in low test scores in the Mexican, Latino community or the black community, we don't talk about it in the Asian community or the Jewish community. Why? Are circumstances not affecting Jews or Asians that are affecting blacks and Mexicans? No. The same things happen to all these people as a group. But the difference is in the family at home, the emphasis on education. There's a meme that's going around the internet. It's called Angry Asian Dad or something of that effect.
Strict Asian Father.
What's that?
I see that. Strict Asian Father.
Strict Asian Father. And the reason why this meme is funny is because it's true. If it wasn't true, it wouldn't be funny. But because people of the Asian descent know that the father has a super high expectation, then all the jokes about him or the person getting a low grade or a low outcome in life and the father always expecting something higher, that's what makes the whole meme funny. And it wouldn't be funny if the Asian culture didn't have a family that emphasized education or excelling. Whereas in the black culture, if you closed your eyes and just said, okay, it's a high expectations black dad, people would laugh because that's ridiculous. Sure, there are black dads who have maybe higher expectations than an Asian father, but by and large, generally speaking, that's not the case at all. In fact, it's just the opposite. The dad's not there, or dad doesn't care, dad's in jail, dad's on drugs, etc. So that meme wouldn't apply to the black community because that's not part of their culture. That's not part of their upbringing. And that's why you see, when you think of an Asian, you close your eyes and think of an Asian community. Do you think of gangbangers? Do you think of tagging? Do you think of fighting? Do you think of low grades? Do you think of homeless? When you picture an Asian guy, is that immediately what comes to your mind? An Asian guy? No. The reason why that doesn't happen is because at home, the educational emphasis is so high because of the family. And as a result, you see the community. The community, as a result, it's not affected by all these arbitrary factors. Sure, there's a lot of different social variables, but the one key variable you see consistently over and over is the family life. It's different in an Asian community, in a Jewish community, right? Jews have if you want to talk about outside factors that would lead to criminality, the Jewish community pretty much takes the cake. People talk about, blacks were enslaved. That statement says to me, this guy knows nothing about white slavery, knows nothing about Jews. You want to talk about enslavement, the Jews were some of the first people to be enslaved. And look at their community. They're like the doctors, they're the lawyers, they're the bankers. Why? Is it just circumstances have been terrible for the Jews? But yet, again, emphasis at home, expectations at home, much higher. So that produces a certain type of person. Just like when you have a single mother who has no ability to raise a child in a functional manner, you see the result of that. That's why when they take polls of who ends up in jail, it's the children of single mothers, because the dad isn't there. That you need the guy to give the children direction. That's the point of having the dad there. He is the guiding force. The mother's the nurturing, the caring. Great, that's fine. You need that too. You can't just have the direction without the personal element, the things that the mother brings to the table. But without the father, it's like not having a map and wandering through the desert. You're going to die. Yeah, sure, one guy may make it out of there, but by and large, if you're lost in desert without a map, you have no idea which way to go, you're going to die. People who are raised by single mothers express criminality because of their upbringing, not because of all these little socioeconomic factors. And that's a problem because they never talk about that. When they're talking about education problems, they always say it's the peer group, it's this influence, it's all these other factors but the family, because it's very politically incorrect to say that this community is raising somebody poorly. It's politically incorrect to even make that point.
Well, let me address your points about the various cultures. The way, my understanding of Jewish culture, they were discriminated against, but they ended up being pushed into positions which ended up being in much higher demand. They ended up...
yeah, but they had a choice to be in any position. Why would they just... I mean, they could have been basketball players. They could have been... bus boys. I mean, right? They had a choice to be a bus boy. Why did they become bankers? Why did they become media titans? Why did they become lawyers? They had every other occupation they could have chose. And those occupations are even easier. Like if I had become a truck driver as a Jew, that's much easier to do. Less schooling, less demands, less requirements. I could have easily become a truck driver. Why would I become a lawyer?
I'm not sure actually. But in the way of black people, they came from slavery of from physical labor to...
Same with the Jews. They came from Egypt, even older than black slavery. They're building pyramids. They came from manual labor.
And that's not the way it happened.
That's not the way. How did it happen?
The Jews were paid laborers, and they...
Oh, when they're working for Pharaoh, they're all paid labor. I didn't realize that. Where's that? Where's the record? We got a Jew here. Hey, Jew, sorry, you're not involved in the debate. You can't step in. Sorry, Jew. No. You weren't working in the pyramids, Jew boy. You keep your mic down.
Free labor right now.
Hold on, moderator. Moderator, give this Jew a warning. If he speaks out again in debate, he's either going in the oven or he's going out.
This is a warning to everyone. Please mute your mics. The only people talking are the
I got very upset.
and the two debaters.
Hey, Sig, I apologize for this outburst with the Jew. I'm not affiliated with him in any way.
All right, well, we're getting off topic. I understand.
No, but I think this is very relevant because you make the case that blacks were, picking cotton. They're unpaid slavery, basically, and we all are familiar with that because it's in recent history. It's a recent history.
Back to how we're getting on topic here. We're talking about cultures and their effects on people. So are we
right? But it's a huge thing for you to say the blacks are slaves, right? You say that, and I acknowledge that. I agree with that. But then you're saying Jews weren't slaves. That's a huge disagreement, and that really affects the argument you're making. Because to say the Jews weren't persecuted, it's almost like saying there's no Holocaust. The Jews weren't thrown in ovens. They were just persecuted a little bit. That's like saying the Jews weren't forced laborers in Egypt. They were just kind of paid workers. It's not the same argument.
But let's get back to our topic here.
That is that's relevant to the topic. You're making the argument that they didn't have as hard a life as black people who grew up as slaves.
Okay, but yeah, okay, I'll concede that point. But we're talking about.
Oh, that was easy. Woo! Good. Put a point on the chalkboard for me.
Congrats. But we're talking about personal responsibility and influence.
Okay.
What are you saying here? That culture has...
by the way, can you turn up your... Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you turn up your mic a little bit, or is that as high as it goes?
I'm not sure how to do that.
Just speak up. Just speak a little louder, please. I want to make sure... Right. I don't want to miss what you're saying.
All right. So what are you saying? You're saying that culture has too much of an effect on people, and that they aren't as personally responsible when they're in regards to how they're raised?
Exactly. I'm saying that as a child, you don't have a say who your parents are, where you're born, what environment you're born into. So that plays a huge role in how you turn out. You can't just say that, too bad you're born here in this environment, and you just have to overcome that. The cultural upbringing determines who you are.
Who are we to hold accountable? The parents?
Yes, for sure.
The parents.
We should hold them accountable too.
How much accountable? Should they be equally accountable?
Yes!
Lunatic has already reduced this to absurdity by showing you that if you hold everyone accountable in that way, then everyone up the whole line is equally accountable.
Yes! Now you're getting the point. How is that absurd? That's common sense. If
Because
you produce a problem, look at
control over ourselves. We have the ability to change. I thought you also.
Oh, really? So that's why when we close our eyes and we make that meme, we just pervert that meme and make it into high expectations, black father. Everybody just naturally agrees with that, right? Everybody will just spontaneously say, "Oh, of course, all black people have high expectations." And if you don't believe that, you're just racist or you're just unfairly stereotyping people. You think people are going to agree with you?
The problem is you're thinking that responsibility or accountability is binary. It's either on or off. It's either you're responsible or you're not. But
no, I just told you there's two parts of this responsibility. Yes, there's the single mother part of it.
Yes.
Which you don't agree with. But there is also, just as I was raised by a single mother, and my life is a certain way, I'm still responsible for my choices in that context. Overall, if you want to talk about shared responsibility, it's like there's everybody has something they're doing, but it's out of their hands and why they're doing it. So, I'll give you an example. I can rob a bank. Well, I should get punished for robbing the bank I took from these people, right? But why am I robbing the bank? I was raised in a poor environment that caused me to rob that bank. I mean, if I had people supporting me, if I had a job, if I had training, if I had social skills, if I had all these things that are necessary for human life, I wouldn't turn this way into a life of crime to rob this bank. So to say that, it's just one or the other, it doesn't even make sense. It's like saying, you just raise a human, but your argument, let me go down the line with your argument where the logical conclusion there is. Your argument basically says that whatever you do to educate the person, whether they're in a good home or bad home, whether they're sexually abused or not sexually abused, whether they come from money or no money, whether they're educated or not educated, it doesn't matter. That's what your argument says. That says all that training doesn't matter. You're discounting the whole point of even going to school if you just say, well, the individual is just responsible for themselves and nothing that happens to them influences their life. Society, the way society raises them, what they see on TV, what they see on the news, doesn't matter. Not influential. Why do we have R ratings on movies? Why do we have restrictions on things? Because those things affect people emotionally and psychologically. They affect how they turn out. Just like if you see, okay, I'll give you a prime example. Vets that go off to war. They see death, they see killing, they see murder. They have this thing called post-traumatic stress disorder. So if they are psychologically affected and then they go out and kill somebody or they kill themselves, they suicide, they have violent life, they beat their spouses, they drink, they become alcoholics, are we saying, well, that's just the vet's fault? Too bad, you're responsible. What about the war? How come you see it across vets. You see it across vets. When they go to war, they come back with this syndrome. Why is it vets in particular? I thought everybody was just responsible for themselves. The war shouldn't affect them, right? The war shouldn't have any influence on them.
I'm saying that there is influence on.
Oh, so now you're changing your position. There is influence.
No. I'm trying to. Maybe I failed to communicate my position properly, but what I'm saying is influence does have some measure of control over people.
How much?
Personal responsibility. There is more. You have more control over yourself than other people.
How much? How do we decide the percentage? How much does a war affect me? How much does seeing a body blown apart affect me?
You have to choose some measure of that, but...
How do we measure that? There's no but. We need to get to the bottom of this, because this is actually a practical issue. You're saying, I saw a body blown up in front of me, and I was ordered by a government to shoot people in response, and I've seen all that trauma. How much now does that affect me? What's the percentage, and how do we calculate it? You tell me.
I don't know, but it's not...
You don't know, and now you want to talk about policy and fairness and justice? How can you ever dare to even talk about those things without even having a measure, a standard for figuring that out?
And not be able to tell you exactly where that would be. I'm trying to tell you that influence has some measure of control over a person, but we also have control over ourselves. So
yeah, but you can't decide how much is which. So what does it even matter? Would 1%, 10%, 100%? You can't even say. You have no standard for measuring it. You have no standard for punishing or rewarding that. Like, how can you even enforce that in policy if you have no standard?
Then everything being equal, is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I'm asking you. You're the one making the statement that says we should be able to determine that it's 62.8% responsibility for the environment and 47.6.3% for the single mother involvement or the other factors involved. I mean, how do you determine? Then how do you write policy based on that determination?
Okay, we'll talk about practicality later, but let's talk about
later?
the ideal situation.
All right.
The ideal
I'd rather talk about it now, but all right.
The influencers should be held accountable in proportion to what control they have over the individual.
I think that's a silly argument because there's no way, you just already demonstrated there's no way to measure that or standardize that, so It's a
Yeah, that's the next step. There's no way to tell what influences each other unless you can establish a clear cause-effect relationship.
I think we pretty much established that by history. I think history historically tells us, and even common sense tells us, when we picture stereotypes, for a certain reason. There's a kernel of truth in them.
Okay, let's talk about practicality in that sense then. How would you enforce that influence?
How would I enforce?
How would you enforce punishment of influence of various cultures that cause these undesirable behaviors?
Well, here's the thing. It's going to seem kind of unfair because you have to start somewhere, and that's a problem. Nobody wants to be the test case or the guinea pig for changing our standard of justice. But you got to start somewhere. So here's what we do. I'll give you an example. Here's how I'd run the prison system if I were in charge, or just society. Let's say I just took over society one day, and now I'm in charge of the penal system. I would say this: look, I don't care if you cannibalized the family of 5 people with little babies and you ate the rabbits and whatever, or you broke a speeding law, right? I don't care what your offense was. I don't care why you're in there. I'm freeing everybody. Everybody's out free today, okay? So murderers, rapists, serial killers, and people who broke the speeding limit, okay? So everybody gets free, okay? But here's the important part. Everybody gets a clean slate. But now it's real. Because if you're caught for some crime, no more of this bullshit like, you get a year, and no. It's going to be serious punishment. I'm not going to fuck around with you. So let's say you assaulting, murdering, whatever, stealing, it's going to be a serious punishment. Like if you're a murderer, you're done. You're gone. Death penalty. Head's chopped off. That's it. So my punishments are going to be more severe. There's going to be public caning. If you're caught with graffitiing a building, you're not going to pay a fine. I'm going to take you outside there. I'm going to have some guy paid to beat you publicly. So I'm going to make the punishments more severe now so that you're accountable. Now, I realize that there are some criminals who are career criminals because they've been raised in such an environment that they just accepted it. I mean, it's just their worldview now. So when they commit crimes, I mean, if I'm freeing career gangbangers, they're going to go right back to the game. They're not going to just turn around a new leaf just because I said so. But at least I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, look, because the current justice system is bullshit, I'm going to institute a new justice system. But I still know there's a certain percentage who are going to fuck up. I'm not going to get them out of punishment just because I know they're going to fuck up. I'm still going to make them accountable for their actions. But in the process, this is going to teach the future generations after them that they will be accountable. Just like this. Okay, here let me make this more practical so people understand what I'm talking about. Let's say we're talking about the principle of gravity. If people jump off a cliff, they'll fall down and everybody who jumps off a cliff, they're going to die. Whether it's a cat, a baby, an old man, they're going to die. Okay, but somehow our current justice system is like we found an artificial way to circumvent gravity. So if you step off a cliff now, today, there's either there's an emergency balloon slide inflates or something happens where it just prevents you from dying, from falling. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm removing the emergency procedure that prevents gravity from taking effect on your body once you step off that cliff. But I'm not necessarily going to say you can't step off the cliff. You can still step off the cliff, but now instead of that emergency procedure that would save you from the consequence of stepping off the cliff, now you got to pay for that consequence yourself. Now if you step off the cliff, you die. So that's going to teach people who witnessed that person jumping off the cliff before there was an emergency procedure that saved them. You know, there's still people who are used to that, and they're going to think, oh, it doesn't. That emergency procedure is still in place. They wouldn't do that to me, and they jump off. They're going to die. And then the person that sees that is going to go, oh, they're not fucking around. I better be very careful with my actions around this cliff. I better be very careful with my actions in society now. I better be very careful how I treat other people now because there are real consequences now. There's no artificial government in the way to enact artificial barriers that prevent me from experiencing this consequence. Just like there's no more balloon or safety net once I jump off this cliff. I will actually experience the effects of gravity. I will experience the effects of my choices. There's not going to be an artificial buffer that saves me. So that would be my justice system. Do you see what I'm saying now? As far as, sure, there's the influence, like people are used to just jumping off the cliff, just like people are used to being gangbangers and having a gangbanger lifestyle, and just because I let them free doesn't mean they're going to turn over a new leaf. There are some people who are still going to test that line. But once they test that line and reap that huge consequence, the next generation is going to learn, and they're going to say, oh, I don't want to reap that huge consequence, therefore, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to jump off the cliff. I'm not going to get involved in gang life. I'm not going to do this or that. So that, putting the punishment back in punishment is a huge part of deterring crime, is a huge part of disciplining an individual, is a huge part of making a functional community. Because if you just make a law like we have today, and you have so many ways to get out of reaping the consequence of breaking that law, the law is meaningless. To many people, the law is meaningless. It's a game. It's a game.
I would argue that the law, it's already pretty crippling to people.
I would argue it's not. I would argue if you, there's all kinds of cases we see where, a heinous crime, and in one case it's 20 years to life. In another case, they get parole in 6 months. And that's it. What? It's like the same crime, but 2 different judges, 2 different standards of justice. You see this all the time.
Well, I'm not sure what particular case that is.
What particular? Like a lot of cases. This is not just one case. That's why I'm not just talking about a particular case. I'm talking about a lot of miscarriages of justice just because of the judge, the jury, circumstances. People get off. There's high-profile cases that talk, sports player hit somebody, killed somebody. Our own president, the president's wife, Bill Clinton's wife, killed somebody. She murdered somebody. I'm not sure if it was Barbara or Hillary, but it's one of the first ladies. Yes, it was when she was a teen. She murdered somebody driving a car, but no problem. No problem.
That's vehicular manslaughter.
Yeah, it's negligent. I don't care if it's with a car or with a gun.
Why that crime is not as serious as premeditated murder.
Not as serious? That's a joke. That's a joke. That's like saying, "Oh, I'm just having fun with my friends. I'm swinging around. I'm swinging around a mace for some reason, and I actually hit a friend in the face and kill him. But I was like, oh, I didn't see him. They were behind me. It's just negligence. It's just manslaughter. No, you're the irresponsible fuck that was doing that thing that caused that person to die. That's the same as you plotting a murder of a person. They're both dead. In both cases, the person is dead. It doesn't matter if your intention was malice. You had malice over here. You planned it a week before, or whether you were just negligent, swinging around your mace and you accidentally hit him, and they were behind you. In both cases, you're negligent. You're the cause. People were just talking about, well, hey, you gotta be responsible for your actions, and now you're saying, well, it's just intention. It's just intention's different.
No, there's a okay, the outcome is not the only relevant thing in determining...
Oh, it isn't? Okay. So we got 2 dead bodies here, but how I feel determines the outcome of the crime?
Yes, it does, because if it's unintentional...
Oh, so I could just say, I plotted to murder this guy for a month, and then I could just change my story and say, it was an accident, I didn't really mean to do it. I had second thoughts, and when I was planning to shoot him a month ago, I had second thoughts, and I just got nervous, and my finger slipped and shot, and hit the trigger and killed him, but I didn't have the intention of doing it. I changed my mind later, so I should only get manslaughter this time, because it wasn't premeditated.
The actions that resulted in the accidental outcome should then be evaluated.
Are you fucking high? That's what we do today.
I'm not saying if you pull the trigger and you can no longer control where the bullet is going.
Yeah, but I could just say it was an accident. I didn't mean to shoot him. I was nervous. I just got nervous. My finger slipped. I didn't mean to shoot him.
His decision to hold the gun and point at them before, which wasn't accidental, would then be evaluated.
Yeah, but it was an accident.
You're saying that anyone can claim...
Exactly! That's exactly what it allows for. You're saying the dead bodies are irrelevant. It's the contingent upon the person who caused the accident. Their intention. You know how narcissistic that sounds? You got 2 dead bodies over here in 2 separate cases. They're both dead. They both don't get to experience life. But the punishment of the person who caused the death just depends on what the person was thinking and feeling at the time. You know how narcissistic and unjust that is?
Define how they're causing it. And imagine a situation...
How they're causing it is irrelevant. They're negligent. They caused it.
Okay, so what if someone steps on an invisible button that levels an entire town? Should they be held responsible?
An invisible button? Okay.
No idea that would happen.
So I didn't realize I would, stepping on this, I don't know if I can make this case tangible. I'm trying to think of a case where it'd be like an accident. Like a road. Like, I know they typically use this example. Driving a car, right. Skidding.
Someone's in front of you while you're driving.
Look, you got in the car. Yes, a rainy day, tires may go out, you're swerving. Guess what? You still got in the car. Either you're not going to get in a car in the rainy day as a consequence of having to reap that result, or you're going to drive much slower so you won't fishtail and kill another person.
Yeah, but to what degree of control do you have over making the decision to drive in the car and you're...
Well, then, if you're going to go that route, we could say, well, the breeze, it cooled me, therefore it chilled my neurons, which couldn't concentrate, so now before I was going to cause bodily harm to this person, but because of the weather, it affected my the brain chemistry in my head, and now I did something as a result of that. I mean, how many factors, and how do we calculate all these factors?
You wouldn't actually be able to calculate it accurately. You have to do it subjectively.
Subjective. So justice is now subjective. How is your system any better than my system? At least I have a standard for my system. Your system, I just say, hey, I feel like this guy looks guilty.
I'm at risk of getting beheaded because I might hit somebody.
He looks black enough, he's guilty. This guy looks dumb enough, he's guilty. I mean, it's so subjective.
It's okay. You use certain objective measurements, but
like what?
Like you have to evaluate their decision-making process.
Yeah, I have to. How do I evaluate their decision-making process again?
What do you do it? Well, you heard of the modus operandi? That their motive, their...
So I tell you my motive. It was an accident. There's my motive.
Then okay, if you do something by accident, how much control do you have?
Okay, so like I said, I was pointing the gun at you. I didn't mean to shoot you. It was an accident.
Then
I should get off free.
You meant to point the gun at them.
What's that?
You meant to buy the gun. You meant to point the gun at them.
No, I was meant to point it. I was swerving around with my hand. And I meant to point it at this tree over here, but they just happened to be in the way. I didn't see them. It was an accident.
Okay, you would have to approve that statement.
I have to prove it? What are you talking about? Approve it.
You have to prove it, not approve it.
How do I prove that I was in a car and I was swerving and I lost control? How do I prove I wasn't just negligent?
Well, if you're driving along...
Do I get a point on the chalkboard, or you got some argument for me? Because I'm waiting for it.
Well, I'm not sure how that's proven in the court of law, and I'm not sure.
Well, that's the problem. A lot of things are subjective. That's my point. I'm not sure either how it's proven. That's my point. Whether they prove this guy was intentionally had malice in his heart and forethought and had this crime all planned out, or whether this guy was like in a fit of rage, or whether it was accidental. He's negligent in all cases. Doesn't matter. The point is, you still have a dead body here, a dead body here, and a dead body here.
Your alternative is that if I drive a car and at the normal speed limit, and somebody cleverly wants to kill themselves and jumps in front, and they die, your alternative is that I am just as guilty as someone who did it premeditatedly.
They jumped in front of the car and wanted to commit suicide. So, isn't that kind of a different circumstance where a person is jumping in front of the car versus you're driving into the person? Because it seems like two different things. Like, it's almost like saying, I'm pointing a gun at you versus you grab my hand and put it on the trigger and pull the trigger. It seems like you're initiating the action. So you're the responsible party in that case. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference between me pointing a gun at you and shooting you versus you grabbing my hand, putting it on the gun, pointing it to your head, and pulling the trigger. Yes, technically, I'm holding the gun and shooting you, but you are the one causing the action to happen.
What
if you're
driving along a piece of fucking cardboard that goes on your windshield and you crash into somebody and they die? Is that your fault?
Okay, so this thing is blowing around in a windstorm, right?
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
How fast are you driving in a windstorm? I mean,
windstorm. It doesn't have to be.
You're negligent, aren't you?
Are you negligent?
Can't you drive slower in a windstorm?
Sure.
Do you choose to go the speed you're going?
Yes, it just
you chose to drive a car. I mean, how?
And then you have no control over it. Negligence is nowhere near comparable to something like premeditated murder.
You're talking about apples and oranges here. Let's stick to one case and then let's apply it to show how they're analogous.
I'm showing they're all the same because one in different situations.
Okay, let me think about this for a second. So you're driving along, cardboard blows over your window, and you hit the family in front of you and you kill somebody. Cardboard blowing. That's called what they call the act of God. This is kind of a tough one, but I always lean on the side of you're still accountable because you could drive, like I said, like the circumstance. In what circumstance is there going to be cardboard? Okay, if it's blowing off of somebody's truck and it lands on your windshield, I'm holding the person who didn't tie their cardboard down. They're accountable for causing the accident that caused you to kill. Or if there's a windstorm blowing the cardboard, you should be a careful driver and be slowing down. So in either case, you're just kind of like throwing the circumstance out there without even investigating the cause of the circumstance. That's relevant. And you're talking about causes here. Like, how did the cardboard get on the windshield? Was it just blown there because it's a windstorm and the person's driving?
An example of an unforeseen circumstance. You're claiming that we can foresee.
Well, then we could say I didn't know the law existed. You know a common argument people make. You know a common argument people make is I didn't know that law existed. What does the law tell you? Ignorance is no excuse. right? Isn't that a common law? I didn't know it was illegal to murder. I didn't know it was illegal to steal. I didn't know it was illegal to do that. Can't we just say that? Can't we use that as a defense? No.
No, we can't. But
There you go.
no.
The law already tells you that.
How is that relevant to our discussion?
Because you're talking about me driving down the road and a piece of cardboard ends up on my front windshield. Is it blown there, or is it because this guy was negligent over here, didn't tie down his cardboard, and now it ended up my windshield? In that case, yes, I killed the person, but he's the one who's responsible because it's like I said in the previous example, it's like I have a gun and I have a hand, but this person took my hand, put it on the gun, and pulled the trigger. Yeah, technically I'm touching the gun, but this person is causing the action to happen. Just like, technically I killed the driver, but it was because this person ahead of me was negligent and did not tie down their cardboard. They ultimately caused the murder of this person over here. That, that case also applies to the person who, stepped on the invisible button and blew up the building. Yes, technically they caused it, but there was somebody who put that invisible button there, and then somebody stepped on it. So they're the person who's responsible, not the person who stepped on it.
Now just the different influences. What about when there are two different...
No, I'm talking about root cause. I'm interested in root cause.
Okay, but sometimes there isn't a root cause.
What do you mean sometimes there isn't a root cause?
Sometimes there's a bunch of different influences causing one thing to happen.
Such as?
How about your Marilyn Manson example with Lunatic? You said that that Marilyn Manson's influence was the cause of it.
Marilyn Manson's influence was the cause of...
Wait, no. Was it Charles Manson?
Charles Manson, okay. The Charles Manson... Right, okay. So we talked about Charles Manson influencing people to cause the Tate and LaBianca murders.
Yes, he caused it, but what about the kids that actually committed the acts? Are they not also responsible?
Yeah, just like didn't we just talk about that? I mean, there's a difference between me telling you, go kill these people, and then me putting a gun to your head and say, pull that trigger or else I'm going to shoot you. I mean, it's hard. Yes, it's hard because these people have been influenced by Charles Manson and whatnot, but like you said, I mean, holding people accountable. It's just like when I release all the criminals, right? And I release all the gangbangers, and I say, now if you commit crimes, there's going to be serious penalties. But aren't they still raised as gangbangers? And they still have this poor environment, poor upbringing? Aren't they still going to go back to this gangbanging lifestyle? Even though I said, hey, everybody has a fresh slate now, but now the punishment is more serious. I mean, aren't they still going to fuck up? Yes. But we got to start somewhere. That's my point. It may not be fair, but we got to start somewhere and say somebody has to be held accountable, and we have to teach people that they will be held accountable too. And if we have to make examples of people to do that, so be it. It's just like saying somebody died when they fell off a cliff, and then they put warning signs. You know, I've been on a hike where they said, this hike is very dangerous. 8 people have died this year. They put that warning sign up there because those 8 people died. So now people are warned. I didn't want those people to die. It's sad that they had to die, but now as a result, people are going to be more careful because they know there's a consequence.
But
well, that would be the point of public caning. Like, if somebody saw you graffiti...
How limiting are we supposed to... what limits are we supposed to put on ourselves to avoid any kind of small risk that will cause us to be implicated in some crime that's going to be subject to draconian punishment?
What do you mean draconian? I don't understand what type of risk you're trying to mitigate here. I mean, what are you talking about as far
driving a car. If I mess up driving a car, then
I don't know if you realize this, but people talk on their cell phones and cause murders with their car. You think that's better to what you call my draconian punishments, to just say, oh, well, you're talking on your cell phone, you weren't paying attention, sorry, just act of God. I don't know what happened. You think it's not a good idea to take that person who is talking on their cell phone and cause this person's death where they can no longer experience life to also take their life? You think that's unfair?
Okay, no.
You think personal responsibility is unfair? Is that what you're telling me?
No, but...
You just said, I don't know if I want to drive a car now because something may happen.
Yeah, but you're choosing talking on a cell phone specifically.
Okay, you give me an example. I'll answer it. Give me an example. What are you talking about? Be specific.
I thought the cardboard one was pretty good.
Didn't we just cover that? We talked about wind blowing and you being more careful in a windstorm. Don't drive, just like in a rainy day. Don't they tell you to slow down when it's raining?
Okay, what if there's something you can't foresee?
Give me an example. Be specific.
I don't know, anything, like something falls from the sky.
Something falls from the sky, what? I don't understand.
Something's on the road, someone's in front of you, and something falls out of their car and hits you.
Okay, again, was that person irresponsible when they put that thing in the road? Or they didn't secure that to their car? They're the cause. Okay. They should be held accountable.
What if it's not a person's fault, though? What if it's something like a pothole that no one can see or something?
Pothole nobody can see?
Be held accountable for.
Okay, pothole. Who's in charge of keeping up the roads? Who has authority over the roads?
I guess.
Who has authority over the roads? That's what I'm looking for. Who's in control of the situation? Who's in charge of it? If the city's in charge, the city should be held accountable. I mean, who's the mayor? I mean, the mayor, whoever's in charge of making sure the roads don't have potholes, he's accountable.
Okay, so the same.
Look, if I'm a family, here's the prime example. I'm a father in a family.
Yeah.
My kid doesn't know what he's doing. He just wanders off in traffic and gets killed. I say, well, his fault. Sorry. No, I'm the parent. Aren't I responsible for his behavior? Should I be able to go, well, fuck it. Hey, he's his own life. He's his own man. Sorry, he's 5, but he's his own man. I'm not responsible for what he does. He wants to wander off in traffic. That's on him, not on me. What would you tell the parent?
He doesn't know the consequences of his actions.
And you don't? You're telling me you don't?
No, I would.
Okay, well, so then what's the problem? You know how to slow down when it's raining?
The problem is when it's difficult to determine the root cause.
When it's difficult to determine the root cause. Okay.
What if there's a pothole, but it's not that big of a pothole? And
how big is too big? If it's causing a death, I mean, isn't that big enough?
So we don't know. So what?
Well, I'm pretty sure if a person dies and it was because of the pothole, we would know it was big enough. That would be a good determination.
What if? Okay. How about if it was? It's big enough for them to die.
So like they caused an accident. You said they hit a pothole and their car swerved as a result. That's big enough to cause an accident. That seems like it's a big enough pothole problem to me.
Okay, so how would you determine their like? What if they were being negligent and the pothole actually was small?
Well, then aren't they the cause if they're negligent? They're driving all over the place negligently.
Okay, but you're defining the pothole. You're defining the size of the pothole. As
okay, so you're saying they're drunk driving and swerving, and then they hit the pothole that causes them to kill the person.
Responsible or the drunk driver?
Why not hold them both accountable? Why not hold the drunk driver accountable for drinking when he should have been drinking? He should be accountable for that, which caused him to swerve in the first place. And then he hit the pothole, which somebody else could have hit driving normally. Why can't we hold both of them accountable? If the pothole is that big and it causes you to swerve off course, have to be a big pothole, I would say then we'd hold the person in charge of the roads accountable, because aren't they in charge of maintaining the safe roads?
Yeah, but should they be held equally accountable?
Why not? If it's that big of a thing where a person who's drunk or a person who's sober could have hit the same pothole and swerved and killed somebody, why not? Wouldn't that force people? Look, if you knew, let me ask you a question. If you knew that you were accountable as a murderer if your child wandered into traffic, how would that affect your governance of that child? Would you just let them wander off and do whatever they wanted to do? If you knew you were accountable?
Yeah, surely you'd be accountable. But
how would that change your behavior and the way you dealt with that child? Because for that to happen, you would just not have to watch it, just stay inside and watch TV.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying it would affect your behavior to the point where you would be forced to become responsible for the other person. You would watch out for them. You would make sure they didn't go in the street. You would take steps. You would either put a gate there with a lock on it, or you'd be outside watching them. Or if they wandered past a certain point, you'd be spanking them to enforce the restriction that you shouldn't be going past a certain point. Otherwise, there's serious consequences. And I don't want to reap those consequences, so I'm going to make sure you obey me.
Okay, I'm not sure where you're going with it. Okay.
No, what do you mean you're not sure where I'm going? Doesn't that change your behavior, the way you act? Just like if I'm drunk driving down the road and I knew I was going to be accountable for a murder if I hit somebody, that I shouldn't drive or when I'm drunk, or I shouldn't be drunk when I'm driving. Wouldn't that change my behavior if there was some serious consequence?
Yeah, sure it would. But my point is, if you're...
Okay, so what's bad about that?
Okay, if you're putting all the punishment on the person that you have determined to be the root cause, are you not ignoring the influencers? What about the situation where...
Okay, so let's do that. Let's do this. We'll kill two birds with one stone. Drunk driver and bad parenting. Or just like a gangbanger and bad parenting, right?
Okay.
So, at the very least, the parents would be sure, like, if you were held accountable for, well, as a parent you are accountable for your minors, but let's say, ideally accountable, your kid joins a gang.
Mm-hmm.
You should be responsible as a parent. So if they commit a murder, he gets a death penalty and the parents get a death penalty. I think that's fair. Then people would know, if my child's joining a gang, I better take every step and every precaution, every measure. Either I'm going to report that child and get them sent to jail or juvie or whatever, or I'm going to discipline them early on and spank them and make sure they're obeying me and not respecting my authority in my house, I'm going to take every step. If I know that if that person grows up and fucks up, it's on me as the parent. I would be damn sure that child was doing well in school, getting a job, had a productive outlook, was happy socially. I would take care of all these. It would force me to become more responsible for this child versus, well, once they're 18, they're out of the house, not on me.
What?
I'll be here. Take your time. Do you want to go to the audience, or you want to take your time to form your thought? Well, we just usually take a break every so often just to poll the audience, just to get their reactions. But we could keep going and hear more of your arguments.
Actually, I'm ready. So, in that situation, under your harsh justice system.
Harsh justice system. I like how you characterize it. Okay. I would call it fair justice system, but you can call it harsh. Okay.
Harsher, a more accountable justice system.
All right.
In that situation with the gangbanger, any difference in proportionality between who gets punished more or not wouldn't matter in that situation because they still would get the maximum punishment.
Depends on the crime. Like if they're stealing something, I wouldn't kill them for that. But if they did take a life, yeah, for sure. I would put the parents to death, and I'd put the gangbanger to death. If they were stealing, I wouldn't. That doesn't warrant the death penalty to me. Something else.
Would they still get the equal punishment, though?
Yes, for sure. It would cause more accountability.
I'm not really convinced that they should be equal in that situation, but
I am very convinced because I know that if we did institute that, that would immediately change parenting. Immediately, either people would just not have kids; they'd be like too big a risk, or they would start going, "Look, I don't want to have this consequence visited on me. Therefore, I'm going to be much more careful how I'm parenting my child. I'm going to realize it's a responsibility." Whereas people, when they have kids, they don't even look at it as a responsibility. They look at it as a fashionable thing to do. I want kids, or because my friends have kids, or I'm bored, I'm lonely, I want to have a kid. They don't look at it as a responsibility. Like, there are obligations and duties that come along with raising this kid. I better take care of these obligations and duties. Otherwise, I'm going to get fucked.
Well, I think we fundamentally disagree on how much a parent influences their child, but I guess you are the parent, so I guess I'll have to defer to you on that one. But what about other situations of influence where another person influences a person to do a crime? Like, how would you determine the root cause, or would you instead choose to punish both of them equally? If someone tells someone that I'm gonna steal your car if you don't murder somebody.
Steal your car if you don't murder someone.
What degree of coercion is enough for the coercer to be held as the root cause? Like, isn't it much easier if
we got to determine how much control they have? Like, are they in control? Are they like the parent? They're telling their child to do something. They have strict control over them, or is it just like a peer, like your buddy at school? I mean, what's the relationship?
Well, I'm saying that I'm trying to establish a way of determining who gets the root, who is the root cause, and who should be punished in a situation.
I would say, like, to the degree where the person, trying to influence the other person has control over their livelihood. For instance, employment, their life. They're going to kill them if they don't do something. There's some negative consequence where they have control over the person's life. So let's say for whatever reason you could fire me, or you could, if I didn't embezzle funds, something like that.
If it gets really close, where the influence seems just as influencing as their ability to control themselves and not make the crime, you would instead punish both of them?
Here's the problem.
I would say yeah to that.
Here's the problem. A lot of your cases right now you're trying to address like 1,000 symptoms resulting from a one root problem. Bad upbringing, bad person in charge, raising bad people, causing a lot of problems, a multitude of different problems. The way to solve it is not to go case by case, like how much control does he have in this embezzling situation, or in this gangbang murder, or this teacher-student relationship, where they're caught cheating on a test. And there's any number of cases in any number of cultural situations, but the root cause is the same. It's bad people in charge, or I shouldn't say that. I should say a bad exercise of authority leading to bad outcomes, bad behaviors, bad people raised in a community under this authority. Either it be a mayor, a senator, a father, etc. So the root cause, if we address that, it'll address these issues, all these little side issues, the sub issues of how much should the person be held accountable in this case versus this case over here. Well, this person's a teacher, this person's a judge. These little cases are all a result of not taking care of this one root problem. If you take care of the root problem, all these cases will be handled. The reason why we're focusing so much on these all these little symptoms is because we're never addressing the root. Just because we address one symptom doesn't mean another symptom isn't going to crop right up. So you're trying to plug, you're looking at a dike and you're waiting for a hole to spring up and you're saying, how should we best plug up this hole in the dike? When you really should be saying, how do we build a correct dam? If you build a correct dam, you won't have to worry about all the myriad of holes that are popping up. It's not, should we use plaster here? Should we use two fingers here? Should we get a team of people to sandbag over here? Should we do I would say, how about build a correct fucking dam the first time so you don't have to worry about where to put your finger. That's my point when I'm talking about dealing with the root cause, punishing appropriately the root source. And that will take care of all the little symptoms you're talking about here. These different cases, that you can't foresee all the different variables. It's just impractical.
Well,
and the result is we have a subjective justice system today where, same crime, different punishments every time. It's like 4 years, 10 years. I mean, it just depends on your lawyer and how well the DA has proven his case. It's bullshit. It's a crapshoot. People know this. I mean, look at the OJ verdict. Prime example, right? I mean, look at the Casey Anthony verdict. Prime example of just these ridiculous miscarriages of justice.
Were those caused by our inability to jump on an individual for...
Jump on an individual? Yes. We had jumped on OJ's parents and Casey Anthony's parents. We wouldn't have OJ and Casey Anthony in the news today. Yes, for sure.
Well, I feel like that was caused by an entirely different issue than what we're
You may feel that, but I'm telling you from experience that the people in charge determine how the people who are under the people in charge turn out. Let me say that a little better. Those who are governed, their behavior is determined by the governors. The governors determine how people act, how people behave. The laws we have in place today determine how people behave. The punishment, the enforcement of those laws determine how people behave. So you can see our society is a result of our government governing us, determining how we behave in a certain situation. I'll give you a prime example. Normally people's instinct is to help others. Somebody gets in an accident on the street, somebody is committing a crime and they see a person naturally running down the street. Your natural instinct is to help, right? I want to help that person. They're dying. This person needs CPR. But what do they think about now? Oh, somebody helped somebody in another case, and I saw it in the newspaper, and they had a lawsuit. All right, they broke my ribs. They were trying to resuscitate me. I wasn't breathing. They did CPR. They broke my rib. Now I'm suing you. Who wants to deal with that? If the court holds that person accountable, now next time I see a person on the street, I think, well, yeah, I want to help that person, but I don't want to get sued. I don't want to lose my income, my house, my job. I don't want to lose all these important things that are good for my livelihood. Why should I risk all that for this person I don't know? Well, initially I would have, but now the legal policy governing me determines how I behave.
Okay, so those problems are completely different problems, but you're saying that
they're the same problem. It's just
your solution solves my issue with
the way you govern determines how the governees act.
Okay, sure.
Just like how the parents govern the children determines how they act. Why would you go to school if training didn't determine how you acted?
I'm sure it does.
Well, then you just undermine your whole argument. You're sure it does. If you're sure it does, then you should be sure that the parents who are training you, who are, quote, quote, schooling you, determine how you come out. How is that not common sense? You yourself are experiencing it. You're going to school. You're becoming a doctor, a lawyer. You're training. That's going to, the level of education, how competent your teachers are. They're going to determine your habits, how ethical you are, how studious you are, how diligent you are. They're going to determine all of that. I had bad teachers and I had good teachers, and that determined how I studied, if I passed tests or not, how I thought of myself as a student, how I proceeded in life. They influenced that. They were in charge of me.
Okay, so your solution to that problem is to hold
those in charge accountable.
Yes, those
to
in
stop
charge
worrying about the little solutions, the every situation where this person did this person did this person did this. What are all the varying factors? I say, look at the people in charge. Look at the parents.
So you're basically just establishing that they're the root cause and that they should be punished. Only them?
Not only they. I thought we just talked about this. It was the like the gangbanger. Like I said, remember we let all the people out of jail and we gave everybody a fresh slate. Well, we know the gangbangers. Some of them are still gonna go back to gangbanging. Well, that's the result of their influence their poor parenting and resulting in them becoming a gangbanger. So they're still going to commit the crime, so they should still be held accountable, right? They get the death penalty. They go out and shoot somebody. They carjack somebody and it ends up in a murder. They should be held accountable for the murder. But now we also go to the parents and say, this is your child. Sorry. We must be just because we want to prevent this from happening in the future. We're going to execute you too, to send a message to future parents. Don't be fucking negligent with your children. Take care of your children. Don't be lax. This is a responsibility, an obligation, not a hobby, not something to keep you from being lonely, not something to do because your friends have kids. This is an obligation, a duty, a serious thing that will affect other people's lives. When you bring people in this world and you don't raise them correctly, we'll have the Boston Marathon bombers that we had recently. We'll have the people who are negligent with their job duties in the Texas fertilizer plant that just blew up and killed all these people because the people were negligent in their job duties. Why are they negligent? Upbringing. If their parents and teachers taught them how to be ethical, how to be diligent in their work, they wouldn't have excess ammonium nitrate past the government regulations allowed at that plant, which caused the explosion. They would be ethical. They would be moral. They would be diligent to make sure they were meeting the expectations and the limits, the social limits put on them by the legal policies, right? But they weren't diligent to do that. They weren't ethical enough to do that. They had poor training. You have to blame the people who raised them. You have to blame the people who educated them. That's why they made those decisions. They made those decisions based on their level of education, based on their level of training. Just like the people who bombed the Boston Marathon, those kids, did so based on their level of education, based on their level of training.
Okay, but how much control does each person have over what they will eventually do? I mean, it seems like if I was teaching somebody, how much would I have to teach them in order to prevent being implicated?
Well, let's put it this way: much more so than they're doing now. I think the ridiculous American school system it's an indictment of the American school system. It's telling us our school system is complete shit, and we know it. We're ranked last. So to say that you're making it sound like we're only number 2 and we're just trying to get to number 1, how much does it take? We're not even doing anything right in the school system. So when you say that tells me you're naive to what's going on in the school system right now. It's horrible. It's horrible. So if I hold them accountable, it'll be better than horrible, at the very least. It's not like we're number 2 right now. I mean, if we were number 2 in education, or if we properly educated people, we wouldn't have the social problems we have today. But we do have them because we have such a poor education. We have poor government. People don't trust our politicians. Why? So many scandals, right? That influences how people behave in society. It's from the head down.
About the teachers, though, like how much could they teach them to?
How much could they teach them?
Yeah, okay. Well, when I was growing up, I was subject to thousands of don't do drugs commercials.
That's nothing. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. The teachers today in the classrooms are not in charge of their classrooms. The kids are in charge of the teachers. Teachers always fear an accusation of sexual assault, or they discipline me when they shouldn't have, and the teacher gets fired. Teachers are walking on eggshells around students when it should be the other way around. There was a time when you could paddle a student who was misbehaving. Now it's like sexual abuse if you paddle them. So teachers are always walking around eggshells. They know that children have the authority over them in the classroom. That's ridiculous. You can never teach effectively if the people you're teaching, the people you're governing, have control over you. If the students govern how I behave, this academy would fail immediately. It would be no different than the American school system. The reason why this academy succeeds is I'm in charge. It's not an American classroom. It's a totally different classroom here. That's why the students here succeed. It's a totally different classroom. I'm in charge. I don't give them the opportunity to make me walk on eggshells around how I should do things, because I know how to do things correctly as far as governing their education, governing their behavior here.
So if they did take charge, then they would be able to have a lot more control. They would be able to.
If they had more control here, they would be fucked. Because it would basically be them coming. I mean, they came here because they were fucked, because they're already in charge of their lives. And look at what a poor job they're doing. That's why they're here. They're already in charge of governing their lives. They already have proved that they don't know what they're doing when they're governing their own lives. They need somebody else to govern their own lives. They need somebody else to control their own lives. That's what the parents should have done. This is just telling me their parents have done a poor job governing them when they were growing up. A lot of people here, including myself, have very poor families. I don't mean that economically. I mean they're horrendous when it comes to raising their children correctly.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So how did that? I'm kind of.
Let's take a little break because we've gone a long time. Let's get some audience reaction. Blue, go ahead and You can go ahead and pull around.
All right, let's go with Stingray. Do you have any reactions to what you've heard so far?
Yeah. I wish you would go to someone else first.
Oh no!
Well, it was, okay, yeah.
Come on, this guy had the balls to debate. All you have to do is respond. You don't even have to put out an argument.
It's true. It's just that when you sit there listening for so long. Well, okay, basically, I think about today's society, and it seems kind of nice. Like, I can kill somebody, and then, 5 years later, I can get out. And I think, well, society really cares about me. But honestly, society doesn't care about you. If it cared about you, it would keep you from killing people. It would control. It would essentially, everyone would control each other and keep each other from killing each other. I mean, I went to this church group thing, and I was amazed at how emasculated everybody was. They said, you don't need to have expectations. You don't, because, that's what God would do. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. Right.
What is this, a Sermon on the Mount? Let's get into some reactions here. I don't want to hear your life philosophy. I want to hear about what you thought about the debate so far.
All right, so everybody, Sting, what you're saying is, in a perfect world, everybody would put everybody in check.
Yeah,
all right,
they would. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for summing that up, moderator.
Yeah, let's go to Bloki.
He's pausing. It's for station identification. Go to some.
Alright.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Bloki.
Well, this debate was a long time coming for me. I was really excited coming into this because it was something which I thought about a lot, the nature of crime and punishment when you're holding people accountable. And I couldn't think of a solution. It completely escaped me. I was thinking, like, if we keep parents accountable, then surely we keep their parents accountable, and it goes all the way up. And it really troubled me for a long time. So I was really pleased to hear about this, like, clean slate, starting over, 100% accountability setup that the professor advocates. Because I thought, yeah, that's like naturalistic. It's common sense. It's fair, and it would work. And I'm just relieved that I finally found the answer to my question, actually.
All right, let's go to Paperclip.
I was a bit concerned about one of the examples Sig, the challenger, brought into the argument about personal accountability, and that's he was talking about how there could be a situation where a guy wants to kill himself. So if I'm driving down the street or down the road, he's going to jump in front of me and then get hit by me, and I'm going to kill him. Now I understand that that's like the analogy of him putting a gun in my hand and then having me pointing at him and then shooting him. But then once this goes to court, like, where do you find the evidence to say, look, this guy committed suicide, or this guy purposely jumped in front of the car, and I wasn't just driving or being negligent.
I mean, they would do that in either case. I mean, let's say they were doing it in the typical court justice system now, where they would measure all the factors, intention, and all that crap. They would do that in either case, under my justice system or the current justice system. They're still going to do the same thing. They're going to investigate. They're going to find their online journals. They're going to go to their home. They're going to ask questions. Was he suicidal? What his frame of mindset was. They're going to go to their Facebook pages. They're going to find all that evidence. Did he leave a suicide note? Why was he wandering there? Was it nighttime? Could he see? They're going to do that anyway.
Okay.
So that's kind of how they determine how it happened. They're going to get witness statements. Did he jump? Did he look like he was running? I mean, why was he on the side of the freeway? Those type of things.
Okay. That makes me feel better then. Because I was really worried about somebody who didn't kill somebody on purpose, or somebody who, didn't kill somebody gets treated like a murderer, even though the other guy was trying to commit suicide. But besides that, I find this very interesting. And I mean, first and foremost, this is a lot of information for me, so I'm still trying to absorb everything and and just understand both people's point of view. But for the most part, I really enjoy the fact that Professor, you would hold parents accountable for the children, because like I just thought about this. If I had a child and I get held responsible for him doing anything stupid, like robbing, killing, or anything else can get him in trouble, it's also going to get me in trouble, and I don't want to get in trouble, so that would make me think twice about, first of all, having a child, and if I do have a child, spanking him, disciplining him, making sure that he's going down the right path. So I really like that idea.
All right, thank you for your reactions, and it's a good thing you can listen to this on the recorded podcast. All right, and Purple Ranger, you're up next. I don't see your video, so I don't know if your microphone's working.
Purple Ranger, go to the next one.
All right, let's go to Hesh.
Hesh.
I felt that this was less of a debate and more of a lesson. I feel that Blue, you kind of failed to moderate this, because there were a lot of times where Plum, I felt, should have been leashed, should have been muzzled. and Sig should have stated his case. But at the same time, I'm feeling Sig, you kind of like failed to have anything concrete there. I didn't feel like you actually had a standpoint or a point. You were just pointing out flaws, and I didn't feel that you actually had a belief there or anything else, or no principles in place.
Thank you for your criticism, Tish.
I agree. I think I stepped over him on a number of occasions, but I don't think it was serious. I think he still got his points in, but I think there were points that I definitely stepped on him and you didn't moderate properly.
Well, I thought I stated my case pretty clearly. It's more about having accountability being proportional to the control over the situation and having the punishment being distributed proportionally based on that. Does that make sense?
So basically what you're trying to say is, does the punishment fit the crime?
Exactly.
Yes.
Proportional to the action. Right. The reason why...
Does the punishment fit your degree of control over the outcome?
Right. But the reason why, Blue, I didn't ultimately, say something to you is I feel that he got his point across. There wasn't a point where he couldn't say whatever he needed to say.
That's what I...
So I didn't really care that I cut him off, because eventually I still gave him room to state his full point. He didn't not state his full point.
All right, I'm going to cut you off now because we have a lot of...
Go ahead, sorry.
So let's go to Pinata.
Pinata,
okay,
unmute.
Pinata is there, so
okay,
we'll go to Poser. Your thoughts, your reaction to the debate.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to the debate, even though it's not like one of those, ones with chicks where there's drama going on and all kind of craziness, or sometimes the chicks stripping. I liked that this was thoughtful from both sides. I like how Sig was, instead of getting dramatic, he was like making points, and sure, you may not it's not making like the strongest point, but he's like, what about this? And like the other guy said, it was a good lesson. Like when I saw from addressing the things Sig was pointing out, I could think of how in my own life, parenting is causing a lot of problems. So it made a lot of sense. One thing though, I was trying to wrap my head around and I was having trouble was where is the different in terms of what Plum said? Where is the differentiation in terms of someone committing a crime due to ill will and someone committing a crime due to negligence? The ill will crime, how is that not more evil than a negligent crime? Like, I feel that like the difference wasn't addressed by Professor.
I don't think. Well, I don't think it's even relevant. I think if the dead body's there in either case, whether you're ill will or you're negligent, it's irrelevant to me.
So the greater evil is irrelevant.
I don't think it's necessarily. I mean, to me, being negligent is evil in itself. It's like you're not caring about your fellow human being. So whether you intended to kill him or whether you were just negligent because you didn't respect his life enough to even take precautions around people, in either case, to me, it's an act of malice.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
And I hope Sig becomes a student here like Lunatic did. I like to be happy with that. Yeah.
All right, thank you for your reaction, Poser. Let's go to Reed.
Hi. I wanted to say that when I first heard Professor speak that he would release everyone in jail and give him a clean state, the first thing I thought was, I panicked. I would be like, that doesn't make sense. But towards the end, as he explained it more, then it started to catch on to me that people would be more accountable to their actions. And what I wanted to say was that this is true, especially, and I know from experience that because I have no accountability to the things I do, I don't act the way I should. Since I don't get punished if I don't do most of my homework, I don't do most of my homework because I can get away with it. I don't get punished because I don't work hard, I can get away with it. So if I had punishments, I would definitely change my behavior. And that's what, I don't know if, Sig, you were getting at, that if we were more accountable to our actions, we would definitely change our behavior. Just the fact that I don't care that the teachers at my school tell me, well, you're not doing great. And I'm like, okay, well, I can get away with it, so it doesn't matter, right? So definitely, same thing, if I had a child, I would probably change my behavior if I was going to be more accountable to it. So I think the accountability part is going to fix a lot of problems, and that's why I was glad to hear that last part.
You just thought I was going to let them all free. What if I just left it all there? I'm just going to let them all free.
Yeah, that's when I was panicking. I was like, fuck, my family's not even close to me. What am I going to do? So I'm glad he got to that. And besides that, same thing, I thought that the debate was more like a lesson more than a debate. But I'm glad these points are getting cleared up.
All right.
That's all I have to say.
Great reaction and improvement over last time.
Yeah.
Furniture, you're up next.
Okay. I liked how you guys went into depth about the specifics. And, like, he kept, the other guy, Sig, I think is his name, he was, like, digging deeper into the issues about, like, who, like, getting to the root of who's being accountable, which I thought was nice. I liked how the punishments, what you were saying, like you kill a person, you get held accountable for killing the person, like they get killed. I like how that creates like a clear boundary for people. Like it's not chaotic. Like it's not different punishments for the same crime. And I think that'll create like a stable environment where you know where the edge of the cliff is, and where to not step off of it. And I think that'll create good fear in the community, and it'll bring us closer together.
Everybody, let's sing Kumbaya.
I thought I was startled because that came out of furniture. It was very articulate. It was very well put. I was very moved, I should say.
But I had another point or question actually. Why not kill the gangbanger that kills whoever and just cut off the arm of like the parents?
Possible solution. You know what? That's a possibility. Maybe. I don't know. I'm open to hear suggestions on this one. As long as it's severe. I mean, cutting your arm off is a pretty severe punishment.
All right, let's go to the next person. And Zymox, you're up next.
Zymox, unmute your mic.
Okay, maybe I don't think Zymox is
Next
available,
person.
so we'll go to Marlo.
Yeah, I agree with Poser. This debate was more like a conversation, more like a regular hangout. It wasn't very provocative. It wasn't interesting like the other debates.
F you!
Sorry. And
It was interesting.
it was interesting. It wasn't like
Don't be
yellow.
swayed. Don't be swayed. Stick to your opinion. It wasn't interesting.
Right.
Keep going from there.
But I kind of wondered when Professor talked about the dike, the hole in the dike versus building a dam from the start, and I kind of wondered started wondering what are the reasons for what's your name, by the way?
Sig.
Sig.
Name's Sig.
What's Sig's motives for claiming against accountability for people? Because when I kind of realized maybe he's like me. He wants to. He's afraid of limitations. He's afraid of responsibility. He's afraid of people giving him, like, putting him in a cage of limitations, because that will kind of create a situation where I'm going to be afraid of doing things, and I don't know. I'm just afraid of limitations and responsibility. So, and this society is so much about freedom instead of accountability, that I thought maybe he comes from that kind of perspective. I just wondered what's his reason. Where is he coming from on this? That's all.
Okay, so you have questions. Maybe Sig can clarify a few points later. Let's go to Brian. Okay, maybe Brian's not there.
That's
Chewy,
WB.
you're next.
WB, are you there? Hold on. WB, are you there? Go ahead, Chewy.
Chewy.
Yeah. Okay, I missed a lot of it.
Of course you did.
I agree with a lot. Yeah, I agree with a lot of the other people. But I just don't want to. Can you wait till after I'm dead to start this? Because in the short term, I don't want all the murderers to be out. So if we can wait like 70 years, that'd be good. But I mean, the whole point of this academy is really to focus on principles and focus on the long-term solution, not the short-term, band-aid alleviation. So I agree that if you really want to solve problems, it needs to be drastic change. It needs to be a drastic change, because then you're going to have little instances of a shooting there at some high school, and then a bombing and bombs. Like, it's always going to be things like that, and it'll probably even get worse if it's not fixed. But on the other side, I'm a little bit selfish, and I'm like, I don't really want the prisons to be open right now.
All right. I have my own reaction.
Wait, did everybody give their reaction already?
I think everybody.
DVP didn't go.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I have to go the other way now.
Yeah, anybody that we missed, make sure you give your reaction.
Yeah. Let's go to DBE. I apologize.
No problem, man. Professor, when you were talking about, or rather, I'm kind of speaking to the audience here. I know that when Professor says, if you kill somebody, you're going to be executed, your parents are going to be executed, and however far down the line you want to go, they're going to be executed. That sounds extreme. But the alternative, when you think about it, is even worse. If you don't hold them accountable, the next generation, like let's say you execute that family, the next generation is going to smarten up. They're not going to, you're going to have far, far, far less murders the next generation.
But less extreme punishment than that.
What?
How would we start with a less extreme punishment down the line than murder?
Well, we're letting them all free and we're having a clean slate. We're starting with an extreme punishment to get them to smarten the fuck up right away. We don't want to wait like hundreds of years to get them to change. Let's just like Plum said, it's like you have to have the guinea pig. But the alternative to not doing that is you look at today, you have the most heinous crimes being committed. You have kids microwaving babies, things like that. All these ridiculous crimes that are far worse than murder because of a lack of accountability. So to me, while it sounds extreme, I look at how things are going now with today's justice system, where you have men being killed because of false rape accusations, being killed by violent mobs because they've been falsely accused of rape. Looking at corrupt cops and all these other things, all these other problems that stem from a lack of accountability. I would much rather have this extreme system that would seem extreme for a generation, but then lead to a happier, more peaceful lifestyle a generation later, than deal with all the bullshit that there is today. And as for you, Sig, I don't mean this to be condescending or insulting, but you're a real nerd. You're a real nerd in the sense that and I don't mean that like just to call you names. I mean it in the sense that you are focusing on, you want to focus on 1,000 different ways of curing a problem rather than just fixing the root cause. Like you kept going, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? When the answer was pretty much the same every time, but you couldn't see it. That tells me that you're a bright guy, thoughtful guy. You're obviously somewhat mentally disciplined. You don't get emotional in debates like our other debaters, but it tells me that your education is still very poor, that you can't go behind the semantics and see the principle governing what's going on. That's my reaction.
Oh.
All right. We
Powerful.
have Zoom.
I thought that was powerful.
Yeah. Zoom, you're up next.
All right, I thought Professor's idea was a little extreme, and I thought Sig's ideas were still not quite. They're too passive. I think there needs to be a middle ground where all the punishments are on the same level, and you're still holding the parents accountable for the actions of the children. I think that would serve the same purpose without having the extremes of death to the parents.
You know what? I want to just say one little point. I'm open. I just want to have some kind of extreme, not some kind of extreme punishment, some kind of comparable punishment where a person who lost a life. So, like somebody mentioned, cutting off an arm. I'm open to hear suggestions along that lines. At least that's a severe punishment, but it's not death. So something in that extreme. I wouldn't say extreme, but I'm saying something to that magnitude. So it's a significant punishment, not just a fine or an imprisonment. If it's somebody's life is gone and taken, it should be that much of a magnitude of a punishment, like either you cut off an arm or take your life, something of that magnitude. But I'm open to suggestions. Is what I'm saying.
I also liked the way Sig kept digging for answers from the professor, trying to get to the root of what he was trying to say, so that the professor actually said more along the lines of what he was actually trying to say. But overall, I thought it was productive, and like the other said, it's not quite as emotional and scatterbrained as some of the other debates, so I liked it in that regard too.
Okay, is there anyone that I missed? Okay, I think I got
Zymox.
Zymox is not here.
Okay.
Go.
All right, so I have my reaction. So
hold on a second. We got like a lot of mic chatter. If you're playing with your mic, please mute your mic right now. Go ahead, Blue.
All right, so I really appreciate this debate because we have Sig on one hand who's really arguing the status quo, the current system, and that the current system of justice is okay. Where we have Plum, where Plum has an extreme view, extreme in a good way, but it's a bold claim. And the reason why it's good to argue from the extreme sense is because I feel like our current sense of justice and our sense of accountability has been watered down so much that people who are otherwise irresponsible, negligent, there's a whole generation of people thinking that they're doing good. They're good people. They're not the ones committing the crime. So to have an extreme view really shines a light on how impure our justice is. So,
a functional view.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah. It's like it seems extreme to people who are very lax in their own integrity.
Exactly. So even when you say things like, I would be open to suggestion other than killing, anything would be better than what it would be right now because there's a whole generation, parents not taking responsibility for their children. What my kids do is their fault. It's not my fault. I didn't do anything. So to have a pure thought of a pure sense of justice really shines the light on all the bad stuff. But great debate. I want to thank Sig. Sig, did you have any? I don't know if you wanted to continue, but did you have any closing remarks?
Let's do a closing because I actually have to go back to Q&A right now. So let's have closing statements. Go. You want me to go first, and then I'll let Sig finish? Have the last word.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I want to say, Sig, I enjoyed talking to you. You were very thoughtful in your line of questioning. So that showed me you were educated to a certain degree, which I can always appreciate. And I appreciate that you had the balls to come here and debate us, whereas most people are cowards and won't dare to air their views publicly. So I appreciate that. I think you're dead wrong, but I appreciate you coming.
All right. For my closing remarks, before we got to the going to the audience responses, I was thinking that we kind of did come to an understanding where, in practicality, yes, there's no way that we could hold everyone proportionally accountable, and that you can really only claim a root cause to the influencer and the root cause to the actor, and when they meet in the middle, just hold them both accountable. So I think we can agree on that.
Okay. Lou?
Hey, we got some common ground. This is this is unheard of in Manhood Academy.
Unheard of, unprecedented.
What do you think about joining Manhood Academy?
Bloggles is already like, here's the application. Come on in.
Only for free. Yeah, for free. Since he's a bright guy, he could get a scholarship. I'm just wondering,
Blue, can we close the debate first, and then you can talk? Go ahead.
Right. So I'd like to thank everyone who was participating in debates and all the students and spectators. Thank you for coming to the debate, and we welcome any other debaters. We'll see you next time.
Good job, guys.